In this chapter and the next chapter, we shall be talking about functions. First, we shall talk about library functions, and then subsequently in the next chapter, we shall talk about user-defined functions. But before we proceed, talk about library functions, it is essential to understand what exactly is a function. Technically, it is possible to write the complete application in one file and as one big problem or one big program. But the problem with that is it becomes extremely difficult to find out errors, remove errors, maintain it, and if we need certain just parts of the program, we can't just extract that parts and reuse it. So when you hear the word functions or library functions, think of programs like square root, finding the number of characters in a string, sine of an angle, cosine of an angle, absolute value of a number, logarithm of a number, and so on. So what functions do is, functions are small pieces of programs or code which are developed separately, they are thoroughly tested, compiled separately, and then they may be reused in other programs. Let's understand what this line really means. When I'm writing my own code, suppose I need to calculate the square root of a number and I also need to find the absolute value of a number. What I can do is, instead of writing my own code to find out the square root and the absolute value of a number, I can use functions or code which is already provided as a part of the C++ library. These have been developed by experts, they have been tested thoroughly, and they can be used or reused in my code. So functions are small programs, or you can think of them as programs itself, which solve a given simple or a complex task for you so that your programming life becomes easy. Suppose you had to develop your own square root absolute value, it would take a lot of time, it would waste your effort, because these are things which are very frequently required. If they are already available, you can assemble your program very fast and provide a solution. Now, complex programs are also broken down into subparts known as functions or subprograms. So what is a function? A function is also a program and it's given a name. For example, we have used a function without realizing. We have used the cin and cout. These are functions which are declared in iostream.h. So using cin, we have been able to read values from the keyboard into variables, and using cout from the memory or variables, we are able to display it on the screen. So functions are a series of instructions with a name given to them. Square root also contains a number of instructions and the name of it is sqrt. Now let us understand built-in functions. There are two types of functions I told you. One is I develop my own code, give it a name, that is user defined function. But functions provided along with the C++ are known as library or built-in functions. These are a collection of predefined code or predefined functions which provide specific service to us, and they can be used or accessed by us through the header files like iostream.h, math.h, standardlib.h, and so on. So in header files, what really happens is the code for these functions does not exist. During compilation, the compiler just needs to know what functions you're using and what is their model or prototype. So header files contain the model or prototypes of different functions you're going to use. Thereby, by including the header file, when the compiler is compiling your program, by taking a look at the model or the prototype available in the header file, your program gets compiled without any problem. The code, what happens is, if you remember, I was explaining something called as linking. The compiled or object code of the function is already available. The linker joins your program and the library code together during linking and produces one single file. So function prototypes are included by this hash include directive. So when we say hash include iostream.h, hash include mat.h, hash include standardlib.h. We are basically including the prototypes of the functions we are going to use in our program. Later on, during the process of linking, my code and the library code is going to be linked or fused or joined together. Let us understand what is a user-defined program. Just as certain ready-made functions like square root, absolute value, logarithm, sine, cos come in along with the compiler, we can also create our own code and give it certain names. So suppose I am writing a piece of logic to read from the screen, and this logic I give it a name. Let's call it read screen. This read screen may be used by 50 other people in my team. So me as a user have created the function or subprogram to solve a particular problem of trying to read from the screen, and it's a complete independent program in the sense it can be compiled, it has been tested that it reads data and stores the data. So what happens is this complete independent program to read from the screen, store it, is developed by me, but 50 other people use it. Since it's not provided as a part of C++ library, it is called as a user created function. And I can share it with other people in my team to use that read screen or read data from the screen. So the advantage of functions is, since I will thoroughly test it, I will compile it, it can be reused by others without wasting their time in rewriting the same program I have already written. So what does a function do? It does a specific task, and after doing the task, it may send a result to the calling program or subprogram. So let us say I have developed the function to read data from the keyboard or from the screen, wherever it is, does not really matter. So when other people are using it, when they include my function in their header files, later on my code is linked with their code. And what it does is, when they call my function to read data or read screen, the data is read from the keyboard or the screen, and the result is the data being read is sent back to their program, where they are going to use the data sent by my read screen and use it. Now, let us take a look at some of the common header files in C. There are a number of header files in C. It is neither necessary to know the names of all header files nor to know the names of different methods. You can easily look by searching, and for a particular reason, you can find out which function is required and you can include that header file. But the most common header file is standard input output.h, abbreviated as stdio.h. It contains the prototype declaration or model declarations of common input output functions. What are the common input output functions? Okay, cin, cout, okay, open a file, close a file. These are all examples of input output functions. But stdio.h is a file which is used extensively in C programming language. So in C++, we include a file called iostream.h. When we say hash include iostream.h as here, this stdio.h is automatically included when we use this hash include iostream.h, because C++ is a logical extension of C. So when you say iostream.h, stdio.h is also automatically included as a part of iostream.h. Now what we shall do is, we shall just glance at a few functions which are used in standard header file. So some of the functions available in the standard input output header file are fclose. Suppose you have opened a file for reading some data, like the program you are going to write, that is also a file. Suppose you write a program to find the square, let's say to find the roots of a quadratic equation. You give it the name quadroot.cpp. So quadroot.cpp is also a file. So you can, using fopen, you can open the file. After you have done your work, you need to close the file using fclose. Using fprintf, you can write to the hard disk or you can write to the monitor. Using fscanf, you can read from the hard disk or you can write to the monitor. Printf is used to generally write only to the monitor or the output device, the standard output device, which happens to be the monitor. Scanf is used to read from the standard input device, which is generally the keyboard. F get C, get one single character from the stream. F get S, get a complete line from the stream. F put C, if you see C, that means one character. If you see S, it means a string or more than one character, generally the entire line. F put S, write a entire line to the output device or to the stream. Get C, get a single character from the standard input device like the keyboard. Get char, to get a character from the standard input device. So in this particular session, I have just introduced to you what are functions, what are user functions, what are library functions. User functions are if you write code, give it a name which can be used by you or other members of your team, that is user functions. If the code is provided as a part of the C++ compiler or library, that is a library function. Example of that is square root, absolute value, and so on. So in the next session, we'll just try to glance a look at the standard header files we are going to commonly use and the names of some of the functions which are to be used. Just be aware of the name of the functions to be used so that whenever you require them, you can include them, use them, and get the appropriate result.